Welcome back to Bad Attitude C10. Alright guys, today we're going to do something a little bit different. And about a year ago I shared with y'all a way that I would mark my wires in my harness. So the reason I do this, you go sometimes behind people that have wired cars and they might have like 90% of the wiring under their dash or in their engine compartment all one color and there's no markers on them or wording kind of like these that I'm showing you now. And when you start troubleshooting, it can be a nightmare. So although tons of people do it, and I know, hey, some people are building on a budget, but just because Home Depot or somewhere is having, spools of white wire on sale for $1.99, it doesn't mean it's actually a good thing to do and everything you wire be one color with nothing to identify what goes where or where the hell it even came from. So today I'm going to share with y'all again how if I'm using one colored wire, such as this gray wire I'm going to use for the neutral safety switch, even though there's two wires going and they're the same color, it's for the same function, I'm going to use this Brother label maker to label my wires and cover it with clear shrink wrap that has glue. That way, once it's on there, it's there to stay and it won't just fall off like some other wiring harnesses that you purchase that have the little marker tape on them and stuff just tend to fall off. So this tube comes in various different sizes and I got two kits. It goes all the way up and I can even do 2-aught cable. So they're pretty handy and I always get the one with glue. It's a little stiffer and once it seals, it seals. So this is what we're going to be doing today and hopefully you enjoy the video. So hang tight. So these label makers can be picked up pretty cheap and you can actually use different size print, fonts, bold or not. You can double line. You can make the sticker big, small, long, tall, whatever floats your boat. So here's a reference to, if you use a double line with a smaller style font or a larger one. For me, I like doing the larger because, hell, I'm getting old, let's face it. My eyes are still good for now, but that doesn't even, mean that's the way it's going to be a year from now, 2 years from now, or even later. So in addition to this, we're also going to be using the woven style sleeving over the harness stuff. I really like this better than regular split loom. And I got this trusty little deal, so I'm going to show you with this little aluminum plate. It's kind of like a glorified soldering iron that has tips that have razor blades. So whenever you cut this woven shielding or sheath or harness cover, whatever you want to call it, sometimes it tends to fray. But if you use one of these heated knives, it actually basically seals it when you cut it. Now the blade that I have on here right now has a little bit of goo built up on it and stuff, so it's not going to cut real easy and fast, but just with a little bit of pressure and I just rock it back and forth and you'll see it just kind of jump away from the other side. Generally when my tips get to the point to where I got to slide it back and forth like in a sawing motion, that lets me know it's getting pretty boogered up and it's time to change it. The tips I think I picked up on Amazon and there's like 3 or 4 in a pack and I don't even think they were $10. As far as the sheathing, or sorry about that, I hit my mic, or the braided loom, whichever way you want to call it, I've gotten it from various places and it's pretty cool. So guys, we're going to start by putting a small amount of the woven loom over the end of the gray wires, which both these are going to be ground, so I'm not going to have to mark whether it's a hot or a ground or coming back and forth because it's just a signal wire. So I'm using the neutral safety switch sticker on the gray because, sometimes I use word association and seeing how gray is a neutral color. Hey, neutral safety switch, hey, gray's neutral wire, yeah, just weird, I know, I'm just kind of anal. Now when I put this loom over, I'll usually leave it beyond the point of the wires when I first put the shrink wrap over it, because then you can kind of squeeze the woven material together or even fold it in half and it gets into the shrink wrap a little easier and then slide it down the wiring where you want it. Now I'm going to size this up and leave a little extra length on here, that way if I ever do have wire damage in the future I can hook it up, trim it back and change the ends on it. So I'm going to start back and time lapse this stuff and just peel the backing off the sticker, and when I apply the sticker to the woven loom it does not stick very well, so I'll generally just hold it with one hand and gently spin the clear shrink wrap over it and then position it where I want it, and then I'll go ahead and heat it up. Now when you get it in place, I do use a heat gun, and the heat gun's adjustable, and I do usually high heat and high temp in the blower on high the first few times, you see where it's going to be at, and I just consistently move it back and forth, back and forth. Now there are times that this clear shrink wrap, if you get it too close to the gun, it will kind of start turning and burning it, as you can see here. So what I'm going to do is the next time we use it, I'm going to flip the airspeed down to medium and see if that helps a little bit, because knocking the heat down sometimes just makes it take longer to do. Now the brown cable I'm going to use for our reverse lights or backup lights, and they came in a kit that I had gotten from KNR Performance Engineering a long time ago. And no, it's not an extension cord, it did come in a wiring kit, and it is for a shifter cable. So again, I'm going to start the loom and run it down there, and I'm going to stop it a little before the wire comes through. And then you'll see me push this back up, and then I'm going to basically hold it and squeeze it together, and then insert the clear shrink tubing, shrink wrap, however you want to say it, over it, and then I'll slide it down. Now this woven stuff's kind of like Chinese handcuffs, so sometimes it's easier just to push it and let it bow up, and then once you get the wire through, you can pull the wire, you know, through the rest of the way. So again, same method, same thing. I got the shrink wrap on, I got the woven material where I want it. I'm going to go ahead and get my marking which says back up, and peel the backing plate off of it, stick it on the woven material, and slide the shrink wrap over it again, get it in position, and heat it up. Now this time I'm going to try the medium and see if it actually melts the shrink wrap a little better and we don't get any burn marks, and then we'll compare the two. So here you can see the backup is nice, clean, you can read it, no burn marks, looks good, it's sealed. I do tug on the wires to make sure the glue does, you know, actually melt and seal the ends of it. So here you can see the neutral safety switch, there's the backup, you can see the baby burn mark on the neutral safety, and the backup one looks perfectly good. So up next, I'm going to get the larger woven material that I have, and we're going to go ahead and run these cables through it. But first, here's a little trick I do. I'll usually, if I have more than one wire going through loom, I'll take a piece of shrink wrap and I'll put it down and I'll go ahead and heat it up. Now if I got double wires like this that are thick, I'll offset them to where you can make it over a little easier. That way you can use the smallest shrink wrap possible, because the snugger it fits, the less you're going to have to shrink it down, and it's less prone to cracking. So I'm going to position these exactly where I want it, and then we're going to go ahead and heat it up with the heat gun and melt it, and that's going to make these wires then stick together, which will allow us to get it through the loom a little easier. So up next, I'm going to go ahead and grab the loom, and I'm going to put it where I need it, and I'm going to snugly pull it down. That way it's kind of shrunk down, and get the length that I need. And once I get it to the length that I need, I'm going to cut it about 1 inch shorter, because you got to remember, once we actually pull pressure with this, it's like the Chinese handcuffs, it's going to be a little shorter. Generally 1 inch gets me where I need to be, and here I'm going to show you as I'm doing it. I kind of push it, and you can see the loom bulges up, and then when I hold it stiff on the wires and let go with my other hand, it just kind of slides down the wires. So this is the easiest way I found to do it. You can use like a fish tape, run tape through it, and then tape it onto the wires and pull them through that way. But this right here, it doesn't take that long. It's really easy, and after you get used to it, you can pretty much knock it out. And guys, I use this woven loom as a preference because I think it looks cleaner and nicer. Split loom is easier to work with, and if that's what floats your boat, you're more than welcome to use it. This is just what I do. Now, once I get it where I need it, I'm going to go ahead and cut me a piece of black shrink wrap tubing, and again, it also has the glue backing in it. And I'm going to go ahead and slide it over, and just as we did earlier with the clear shrink wrap, shrink tubing, whichever one you want to call it, I'm going to get it in position, and we're going to put it above the heat gun, and I'll work it back and forth. Now guys, I like putting my heat gun on the table like this, and I showed you a minute ago, instead of holding the gun and waving it, because I can then pull the wires and hold them straight, and I generally get a little better tube shrinkage to where it's nice and round. It doesn't get kind of squared, cocky, and you know, start trying to break or tear. Now here I got a pair of small needle nose, and a lot of guys will show you where you can crimp it with that and then heat it up and it seals. I have not really had any good luck with this. I'm going to get me an old pair of hemostats to see if I can use that in the future. So now what I'm going to do is I grab the shrink wrap, and I'm going to start pulling the slack out of the cable, or I'm sorry, the sheathing over the wires, and I'm going to slide it all the way down to the other end, and when we get to that end, we'll continue. With this finally making it to the other end, I'm going to go ahead and cut some more of the smaller sheathing down, woven material, loom, whatever you want to call it, and put on my wires for my backup and my neutral safety switch. I cut the ends off the neutral safety switch, and again, remember, it's just a little play on words. Slide it down. The brown wire is for the backup lights, B&B, brown, backup, the gray one's neutral in color, and using it for that. Again, word association for me sometimes just makes stuff easier, and some might think it's lame or I'm just kind of silly, but it's just what I do. So again, we're going to go ahead and slide the woven material over it, then we're going to go with the clear tube, then we're going to put the stickers on it, and we're going to heat it up and shrink it to where we need it. And the medium air speed, blower speed, whatever you say, seems to be working really good, and we're not getting any more of the burn marks. The burn mark that we did get earlier, it did not go through the shrink wrap tubing. That's why I didn't redo it. It just put a black smudge on it, so I just left it alone. So after that, we're going to go ahead and pull the slack out of this, and I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to go ahead and put shrink wrap on it and shrink wrap it. And dude, now sometimes this happens. I actually accidentally hit the material on the gun itself. So it did put a little burn mark, but it didn't get the wires. But me being as anal and picky as I am, I went on ahead and put another piece of tubing over it. That way I didn't see it. So here it is, the final product finished up. I generally do not go that far down, but you know what? Hey, it's me. I just didn't want to see it. So up next, we're going to go ahead and strip these wires back and put our terminals on. And here again, whenever you're using solderless connectors and stuff like that, use a quality crimper. The strippers that I use are just a regular old hand style. I do not use automatic strippers, never have, just didn't get accustomed to it. Now, you will see that I do have two different colored terminals that I'm using. And the reason I'm doing that is, I'll show you here, the blue ones have a flat backside, the lighter blue ones are beveled on both sides. So with the dark blue ones having the flat side, and the micro switches having the terminals coming off, and there's a flat area on the micro switch itself, that the, right here you can see it, that the solderless connector has to slide over. To prevent any clearance issues, I wanted to use the flat ones on the micro switch side, and the light blue ones just have a double groove on both sides, and I'm just going to use them for the connectors under the dash. So that's the only reason they're different. There's nothing in particularly better about either one, but I just figured the flat ones would fit up against the micro switch a little better. Now, when you're crimping these, be sure that you get a good clean crimp, but you don't want to break through the actual cover, the insulated cover, whatever you want to call it, but you want a deep impression. And I generally do the little tug test, and here you see both of them look identically the same, and then tug them and everything's good. Same thing on the other side, and that's just it. So that pretty much finishes up our neutral safety switch and our backup light harness. Now, I do want to show y'all, I came across this woven loom. It looks just like what I used, but it actually is like split loom, and it rolls back inside itself about a third of the travel length. Now, this stuff is a little bit firmer and stiffer to use, but I'm going to get this bigger cable and show you. This is actually a 2-gauge wire, and you can actually push it in there pretty easy and see the loom go around it and just push it through. And it looks clean. It has the woven look, but it has the characteristics of regular split loom. So if you're a split loom person and don't like the little Chinese handcuff battle that you got to do with the woven stuff, this is another option that you could actually use. And once you get it over and it overlaps itself and locks in, from a distance, you really can't even tell that it's not the regular woven stuff, other than it is, like I said, just a little bit stiffer. It does not have the Chinese handcuff effect or anything like that. Now, one other thing, guys, before we say this harness is good, I'm going to go ahead and I make sure I put my meter over here to check continuity. You can have it on a diode checker or whatever, and turn my audible alarm on. And I make sure that I do have continuity between both ends of my harness. If there's multiple wires such as these, you got two for the trans brake and the neutral safety switch, and two for the backup lights. I'll go ahead and probe both wires even when I'm on the one other one the first time, just to be sure that there's nothing in there that got nicked, or like perhaps when the cable got burned, nothing bled over to the others. So whenever you check them, you should have one on each side that show continuity, and you see the meter move here. And then when you check the other side, they should have continuity, but you should not have more than one wire on both ends showing continuity. If you do, you have an issue, and it's time to figure out what's going on. But I generally will do this and check them before I say, yep, the harness is good, because it would be a damn shame to run this harness and hook everything up, and then when you go to test the function after you do all this wiring and all this hard work, to find out, well, shit, there's something wrong with the harness that I made, and now I got to pull it back off and figure out what I did wrong. So this is just another step. Check it while you're there. Do easy stuff. Keep it simple, stupid, and all that good shit. I hope y'all enjoyed it, and I'll see y'all next time.